welcome back to Live and Breathe Horses. Today we're going to talk a little bit about getting on and having your horse standing still to get on. So for me this is really important. It's a question of good manners and safety. So that your horse, if they start to move off when you're half on, it could be dangerous, you could slip. And of course you need to, once you get on, get your feet in the stirrups, you need to check your girth. Sometimes when you sit on the saddle, the girth can get looser. So for all those reasons and probably more I've forgotten, it's very important to have them standing still. So for me, when I start a young horse, I like the first times getting on is get on, and I don't go anywhere until the horse is really calm and quiet, just with me getting off and on from both sides. And that really sets a lifelong habit that it's fine to stand still to get on. And of course, if your horse already has the habit to move off, and that habit is ingrained, then it is pretty difficult to change that. First of all, it's to make sure you give yourself and your horse the best chance of success. So to get on, obviously not in a situation where you usually get on and then just go shooting off, or with other people and they go off and the horse is feeling impatient or anxious. It might even be a good thing to practice at the end of the ride when you're finished. Also to make sure that you can get your horse to stand still and be obedient without even getting on. That would be your first good thing to do. And in all of this, always checking yourself, what signals are you giving the horse? Because of course they're reading very much how you're feeling, and it can be difficult and frustrating. And as soon as you get a bit frustrated and anxious, that's like mild anger, and that's not going to help your horse stand still. So my favorite tool, the breath. If you can just take long, gentle breaths, wiggle your toes in your boots so you're a bit grounded, that you keep bringing yourself back to being calm. And this is a really good thing you can practice, not even with your horse, just in a visualization or in other situations, maybe in your car in traffic, that you notice you get anxious and stressed by other drivers or hold-ups, that if you start to notice that and practice bringing yourself back to being calm, because it really is a choice. And I know that's it is difficult, but it's just a question of practice and training yourself like anything else. It's like going to the gym and building muscles. It's just practice. So to practice that, noticing where you're at and bringing yourself to calm. Because if you're trying to get on and think, oh, stupid horse, he won't stand still, or oh, I'm in a hurry, or oh, they're going to pick up on all of that. To keep coming back, checking yourself, very important. Make sure your horse will stand still in the place where you're going to practice without even thinking about getting on. And then it's to do just one little stage at a time. So, first obviously I would prepare by putting the reins over my horse's head. Will he still stay still if I do that? And then I might go around to the side of my horse, and get in the position where I would be to get on, if I've got a mounting block or not. If you use a mounting block, which I've got very long legs, but for a lot of people it's much easier to use a mounting block, that would be obviously a good place to train your horse to stand still. And if you really practice, that as soon as you get up on something, your horse comes alongside and stands still, because they're used to that, when you get up on something. So that they stand quietly with you there beside them. I'm trying to stay in focus of the camera here as well, so I'm not going to go to we do have a little mounting block there. So is he calm and quiet when I stand here? Great, yes. So if I was going to put my foot in the stirrup and my horse already thinks he's going to move off, so did you see he made a little movement there? He's a bit anxious to go because all his friends have just gone off out to the field, and he's a bit like, why are we standing around doing this? So then to keep practicing that, because if that already makes him think he's going to move, then there's no point in going further, This also, of course, if your horse has got the bad habit to move off, you're going to have to be very consistent. So the problem is that then suddenly you're going out with friends and you say, oh, it doesn't matter just for this once. It always, always matters. That's the thing. You have to be very strict on yourself. And you could really make a program that you might have to even miss riding, that the whole lesson and session might just be about getting on. And then for all the rest of that horse's riding life, you're going to have to be consistent and strict on it probably. Although once they relax into it, it's obviously nicer for the horse as well, that they're calm and still. You know, at the end of the day, they just want to be calm and at peace. So I would have my reins in one hand, and when I put my foot up to the stirrup, he's now got distracted, the other horses are neighing. If he wanted to move off, I would just raise my hand and say, whoa, you know? So obviously he has to understand that signal. Here come the other horses. So if he's calm there, if he's standing still, I could go ahead and see and be ready. And then I'm not going to go any further, so I would go back. It's actually, he usually stands still very nicely, but he's very distracted today, which is handy because it's easier then to demonstrate. So I would then keep repeating that bit until he's okay with that. Also to make sure he's standing well in a comfortable position, that he doesn't need to move. So if he's standing with that front leg not very back, which is not ideal. So to make sure the horse is standing nice and square and well balanced and relaxed, and if you know, it might be that you need to have a helper. It can be very good to have a helper in the beginning. Also to teach your horse to be able to put his head down, and then he's going to relax more. You know, if you put the paw level or lower than the withers, then the horse is going to relax. So that's another nice way to try and make sure they stand still. And then just to be ready with your hand if they were going to move, and then just to keep practicing with your foot. And like I said, checking yourself, keeping yourself soft. And then if I was going to get on, and then I'll be ready with this hand to ask him not to move if he thinks he's going to move. If I get to there and he moves, I would stop. So he's standing in there, and as soon as he's going to move off, and just say, no, don't go anywhere. And just practice to stand, have a few nice breaths, ask your horse to relax. And you really just need to practice that, you know, again and again and again till they get it, because it's so important, especially as we get older. We want them to stand nice and still and to be able to come up to something to get on. If that was a problem, I would just get off and on and keep repeating it. I've got the other horses all running around just outside the gate there, being very distracting, aren't they, Biscuit? Also thinking that what is your on and off position as for move or don't move when you're on your horse, you know? For me, if I want my horse to be standing still, I'm kind of sitting really down on my seat bones, as if like sitting on my back pockets, you know? My whole posture's relaxed. I'm not up in energy and going anywhere. So if you get on and you're all, oh, where are we going? And of course your horse is going to pick up on that and think, yeah, where are we going? Let's go, let's go. So to have a very good position of standing still, and then a difference that when we are going to go, you bring your energy up and then your horse would already start moving. I'm not big on using treats for things. I sometimes keep some in the tack room, and when I finish and take everything off, if the horse decides to hang around at the tack room door, then they get a wee treat. But I think for training purposes, it's like trick or treat training. So I think better education that we don't do it with treats. But when the horse already has a really bad habit of moving off as soon as you're going to get on, that can be a moment, and it is cheating, but just to be aware we're cheating, that it can just make it much easier to get over that bad habit, is to have treat. And that when you get on, that they get used to getting a treat and they get used to waiting for that. And once they get used to that, it can just be an easier way to change the chip in the head, that they're not thinking about where are we going, they're thinking about what's happening around here in this spot on the ground. We're nice and calm and quiet. And if they know to come and bring their head round and have a treat, shouldn't be necessary. But it is a little cheat that you can use in that situation that could really help, just help them to get over that, because habits, old habits die hard, as they say. thank you for joining us today. I think this is a really important topic. I'd be very interested to hear your feedback, and if anybody has any questions or problems with that, I'd be really happy to answer your questions or look at videos and give any tips or help that would make that easier for you and your horse. So thank you. Look forward to seeing you next time.